Hello, colleagues, and welcome along to another episode of DINCast, where we are going to have a look at another leader's journey today. I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan Dempsey, who's the founder and CEO of the Compliance Workbook. Welcome along today.
Hi, Ian, you okay?
Yeah, I'm very well, sir, and great to have you on today's DINCast to sort of tell your leadership story and your journey, which is quite a different one, I suppose, because I think where I sort of picked you up from was a post that you made, a very honest post about how you first decided to sort of set up your own business, the Compliance Workbook, and yet you were in a very secure job at a large local authority in Leeds.
I was.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated to find out about a bit more about your journey. What made you sort of decide to take that leap of faith?
Okay. Where do we start with this? I guess where the natural part to start is where the idea of TCW came from. And although the business has been kind of trading as such for around about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years from a selling into the industry perspective, I actually came up with the idea around about 13 years ago for being able to get. At the time, I was what's called an electrical QS, which my responsibility would be to countersign electrical documents that had been carried out by someone on site. So an electrician would do some work and you would get 200-300 documents would come and land on your desk. And it's your job to go through those documents to try and understand the data that's in there, make sure that the data is right and that there's nothing that contractor, when I put my signature on, is going to then turn into the likes of Grenfell, for instance. If there's something that's been written on a document that signifies risk, it's my job to try and filter and catch that. So, and I remember I got about 300 documents and they were all sprawled out on the living room floor whilst my wife was watching something like EastEnders at the time. And I remember saying to my wife, there's round about 10 different engineers who produce these documents. And I'm finding it very difficult to find any inconsistencies with their individual output because I was looking at a document at a time. So it was almost really tunnel vision to one document at a time. But what I wanted to see was if one electrician does 20 documents, is the input or the output that they're providing, is it consistent with all 20 documents? So I had the idea of would I be able to get that data out of those documents? And I was told at the time, naively, didn't know anything about technology. I asked somebody who I thought was a technologist or very clever in computing, whether or not it would be easy to hack PDF documents. That's probably the layman's term. And at the time, they said there's technology available in the market, so you can use OCR, optical character recognition. You can use this technology. So I did extensive research on that and thought, but it's not guaranteed OCR. You have to pass things through 3 or 4 times. And if I wanted to get the data and then call somebody out on the information, I couldn't then say, but I'm only 80% certain that you're getting it wrong. And so it never went anywhere. And subsequently, I found out that technologist was actually just a networker who built computers, didn't know anything about software. So that was probably my first lesson. And then I didn't do anything with it until I started working for Leeds City Council, and it went from 300 documents to around about 3,500 a month. And it became a lot more intense for me, knowing that I didn't have the time, I didn't have the staff to check everything. But yet it now wasn't just me putting a signature against a contractor. It was me looking at data that could potentially impact somebody's livelihood. So if there was a piece of information on that document that signified an electrical risk, it was my job to find that so that I could then address it. Don't want fires, electric shocks. And then I asked the head of IT for that specific local authority and said, I've had an idea. I want to hack PDF documents. I did my research. A PDF document is formatted in loads of different ways. I don't just want to do it on electrical documents, though. I want the ability to get structured data from any digitally produced document. And I don't want to use OCR. And he said it was physically impossible then. I got him to write that on a piece of paper and sign it, which is in my safe, just in case somebody tries to come back at me. So I then went and met my 2 business partners who they're both in technology. Ian Wolsey founded PhoneLink GB Group in 1993. that floated on the stock exchange, value of 300-400 million. And he is technology. He's built technology, very successful in technology. So I ran the idea back past them, and they said, again, probably the third time, which is really important when you're trying to set up a business specifically in software, I call it failing forward. So when someone says no, you don't use that as an opportunity to step back. You use that as an opportunity to step forward. And again, Ian Woolsey said to me, it's physically impossible to do what you're asking, but I like the sound of it. Let's try it. And the rest is kind of history. So we built the product over a couple of years whilst I was still working. Ian was working and Ben was working, Ben Ford, our other director. And we got it to a point where I got a phone call one morning and said, look, send some documents to us. We think we've got it. And I sent 10 electrical documents into this portal. There was just this blank page with upload document button. And I clicked the upload button and I put those 10 documents in, and the system put the 10 documents on the page that I was looking at. And it showed me it ticking through the documents and checking every field. Now, it sounds really simple to check every field, but when I say check every field, I mean it was checking one number against another number on a separate page and then cross-referencing that with British standards. And it was looking at a table in BS 7671, the wiring regulations, and seeing that those numbers on that document there don't correspond to the regulations. And for me, as a qualified electrician, looking at this, I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, this is pretty clever. This is my idea, and I'm looking at it. And we managed to build on it, create a nice UI so people can interact with it, started building more reports, and then expanded into the gas, the electric, the asbestos, Legionella, Lola. And now we have that full suite of compliance documentation. When you take a document, or last week we did 28,200 documents. So going from that first initial idea of being able to structure data and have access to that data to now benefiting 1.2 million social housing properties is incredible.
It's a great sort of start, but can I sort of take you back to what was the point that you decided, hang on, I'm going to make that leap, leave a secure job, and I'm going to go into this sort of full time? What triggered that?
So we got 5 or 6 customers into the product, and we'd given this product out relatively cheap just to try and prove the market and to see that people could really benefit from it. And the business at the time of me leaving, which makes this all the worse, wasn't earning enough money to sustain me as the chief exec in it. I wasn't taking any money out of the business at that point. So the decision to step away was a lot to do with when we created the compliance workbook, we understood, and I did a lot of research, that the amount of people I watched, the YouTubers, the Simon Sineks, the Steve Jobs, and that, spending hours and hours researching entrepreneurs, I gradually got to understand that nobody knew who the compliance workbook was. So for me to drive this business forward, I needed to find a really common brand, or a brand that people recognized without me having to sell it. So we were approached by Capita originally, and then they were extremely aggressive at the point, which normally since then I've found any kind of venture capitalists or big technology firms are very aggressive, and they're allowed to be, because they've proved it themselves. And I felt like they were a little bit too kind of forward and too aggressive. And then all of a sudden we were approached by Corgi Technical Services, and Corgi is a brand that everybody knows. And they agreed to white label the product as a Corgi product. And we started that at the beginning of 2017. And at that point, I was asked if I would be the person who would stand at the front and start selling this for them. And that was the decision. It was, do I stay with Leeds for the next 25 years and get a fantastic pension, play golf every week and not worry about, or do I step away? And since then, I jumped on a plane to Vienna for a bite to eat with somebody who wanted to invest in the business. I flew out to Vienna, had something to eat, and flew back. And the person who checked me in checked my passport back in. That's how quick the visit was. And in my head, I'm thinking, Christ, just where my life's gone to. So that's the reason why I stepped away. It was more of a necessity for the business rather than weighing up the pros and cons, I guess.
And so there would be a lot of people that would be involved in that decision-making process, not least sort of, your family or close sort of friends and relatives around that. And, what was their advice, or what were the conversations like with yourself around, say, packing the job in?
Nobody said yes. Nobody said that it was the right thing to do. It was completely my decision at that point. It was my decision. Obviously, the people within the business and the people who wanted to sell the product were saying yes, but everybody who I support from a financial perspective at home, every one of them was saying that it was a really stupid decision. But when you go to set a business up and you truly believe in it, if you do truly believe in that, there isn't any kind of negative thoughts around some decisions. You just go for it. And I don't know how to explain that. I guess it's, you just close your eyes and walk across a busy motorway because you have the belief that no car will touch you. It's being that obscenely crazy that you're probably going to be right because you do truly believe in it, if that makes sense.
It does in a way, Ryan. I suppose, again, though, from a personal decision-making point of view, there must have been moments of doubt, particularly in those early days, from a personal point of view. So how did you handle those?
So here's a story for you that I probably haven't really told many people, because I like people to kind of consider me as quite a strong-willed person in business. And a few weeks after leaving Leeds City Council, I remember lying in bed. It was about 11:15. Wife's beside me. She says, "What's wrong? You're not the type of person who takes ages to fall asleep. You're a bloke. Bloke fall asleep really quickly." And I said to her, "I think I'm having a heart attack." And she works in heart surgery at Leeds. She says, "Don't be stupid. You'd know if you're having a heart attack." She put her hand on my chest and said, "You're not." I says, "I can't get to sleep. I'm panicking. I honestly think I am." So caring wife said, "There's the car keys. Take yourself to hospital if you think you're having a heart attack." She knew I wasn't. I spent about 6 hours in Leeds General Infirmary on an ECG machine being told that I wasn't having a heart attack, that it was stress. And the big question was, when was the last time you slept? And the realization kicked in that I was going to work through the day. And then on a night time, I was sitting at my desk and I was developing not the code, but the calculation logic, the reporting logic, the look and feel of TCW. And I realized in the space of 4 days, I'd probably only had about 3 hours sleep. And it all kind of just built up then. And all of a sudden, there I am sat in a hospital with my chest shaved on an ECG. So the decision wasn't easy. And no one should ever think that it's just, make the decision, everything will be all right. It comes with health issues. It comes with the stress. You will get pressure from your family. But again, going back to that kind of bulletproof belief, if you truly believe in it, then it's worth it.
So at what point then, Ryan, did it sort of just flick a switch and think, wow, I've made it. I've got a real business here?
I would say for probably about 3 years, we never made any money. We were constantly fueling the business from wherever we could fuel it. And we were offered significant investment from capital funders, from VCs. And we've gone down the route of, we've had people slide checks over tables at me to buy the business. And this was all before it was making any money. And I guess probably as close as maybe 18 months ago, we hit a point where, as a technology company, we employ 15 people. We make a profit every month, and we've never had any significant investment in the business. I think the total investment that we've put into the business is around about £150,000, and we've maintained control of this business all the way through. So I would say the turning point was probably about 18 months ago, when we realized that we could cover everybody's wage and the 3 directors could take a real wage rather than 50% of what they're worth. And since then, it's just gradually grown. And so, probably about 18 months ago.
And sort of in that 18 months then, how have you sort of changed as a person? Have you had to start to do things differently? Do people look at you sort of through a different lens? Have you got more confidence in what you're doing and how you behave?
You always have confidence in your brand. You always have confidence in the technology that you're providing and the reason why you're providing it. But when you get to the point where it's break even as a technology, I think the statistics are 1 in 10 make it to I can't remember where I read that, but 1 in 10 due to all of these different ingredients. When you get to that point, there is definitely a shift in how you consider the next steps of the business, because instead of having that almost desperate need to build a pipeline and to sell, and just you kind of become a little bit more formed as a company, not just as me, but as a company. And you start focusing on, for instance, we had Grenfell in 2017, and we were about way before that. And Grenfell comes in, and you can now see the industry changing from this golden thread, this digitalization, this building safety case and fire safety. We were in a position then to react to what's happening in the industry a lot quicker, because we had the funds behind us to say, right, let's change all of our UI. Let's put more compliance in there. Let's put more machine learning capabilities or natural language process. Let's start interpreting how people, and we have the benefit of being able to do that because we're not as lean, because we're not as desperate, if that makes sense.
And this point whereby you become the boss kind of thing. You're now employing or supporting 15 people within the business. I just wondered how you have developed your style in terms of managing them or leading them, and how that might have differed from when you were leading people in a big public local authority.
It is really interesting because from TCW's perspective, when I worked in local authority, I was very, very passionate about getting it right, and I was very passionate about demonstrating getting it right to the people who I was managing. And that was and I always used to instill in the team in local authority that, look, this isn't our job to provide a service to tenants. Remember, this is their castle. This is the decisions that you make could have a lasting effect on them for the rest of their lives. For instance, if there's a repair that's needed over Christmas because somebody's boiler's flooded the living room ceiling, as a local authority, if you don't rectify that before Christmas, that whole family will remember the Christmas when the water was gushing through the ceiling. So we have a really dedicated kind of a need to be good at what we do. I then moved into TCW, and it does shift significantly. And the way that I try to portray that to my team now is the industry does still lean on me quite a lot. I do provide, I do other podcasts, I write blogs. That thought leadership and having the industry come to me for advice on electrical safety or on compliance. When a service desk comes through and it's asking a compliance question, the really nice thing is our support team really enjoy sending that to me so that I can reply on our support desk, because they always say, when you reply to people within TCW, the amount that we learn as a support desk on how to manage compliance within, not just within housing, within rail and within facilities management, they see how I react, and then they gradually learn how to interact along that, because each industry has a specific nuance. And if you're trying to sell in housing, it's very quickly, you can very quickly identify a technology company who doesn't have any expertise in housing, and you can see that very quickly. So I guess the short answer to that question from a leadership perspective is, I don't consider myself as the boss. I consider the company as an equal. We're all very good at what we do, but I'm the person stood right at the front. And to be stood right at the front, I have to conduct myself in a way that is professional, ethical. I need to maintain my integrity. And you try and portray that as much as you can. And even you said it at the beginning with the social media post, wear your heart on the sleeve, because people respect that a lot more than the corporate shenanigans that go on.
So obviously working in a digital technology business, particularly within social housing, it's quite often put to me that social housing providers have what's called a digital lag beyond sort of the big core housing management systems. It's quite difficult to sort of break into a market around that. So how the sort of the compliance workbook managed to sort of persuade people, actually this is a good technical product to invest in?
It's 100% our technology is very niche. You can't say that it isn't needed in the set. Once you understand what the technology does, you are right. Digital lag is a fantastic way to describe housing. And the reason being is housing is always on catch up to other sectors or other territories. And you consider there's 5 million social housing properties, and there's hundreds and thousands of people who manage them. And they're all trying to keep up with standards and regulations and new technologies. And then all of a sudden, you have this boom where people are talking about a golden thread, and you've now got hundreds of compliance technology packages. And the reason why it's hard to get into this industry is because there's too many people muddying the water on what. So, for instance, TCW goes into the market, and there's probably 4 or 5 other brands in the market who would say that they are our competitors. But when you put them together, there is no one does what TCW does. But when somebody comes and says, I want a compliance package, then it's very difficult for them to pick what they want, because they have people selling. They're very hard to kind of pick through the, I don't want to swear, but it's the BS of, do they really do what I need? Or is this just another company trying to make a quick buck to sell? Because the hardest thing with technology is anybody who comes into technology and creates a technology, every time you talk to investors or anytime you talk to kind of significantly wealthy people, they're looking to get into technology because they know everybody wants an exit plan. I get asked, what's my exit plan, at least once a week. And I don't have one. I don't have one yet. And I'm sure I will have one in the future, but everybody in housing is aware of that. Technology companies, they come in, they build a brand, they sell you everything they haven't got, they then develop it with you, and then 5 years' time, they sell it. And that's probably why there's a digital lag, because there's a lack of trust. And it's that attitude. It's Hackett in the Building a Safer Future, when they talked about people's understanding of risk and corporate risk profiling, she referenced the attitudes in the industry. And that's probably the biggest issue around digital technology being adopted.
We're getting to the end of our sort of time today, Ryan. I thought a final question from me is, for anybody else who's in your position, where you were sort of back in the council and that, but is thinking, actually, I want to do something. What would your advice be for somebody who's thinking, actually, I want to make that leap?
So I'm a true advocate now to just get on with it. And I know that's really easy for me to see now because I've gone through it, but if I could document all of the negatives, they will massively outweigh the positives of TCW in terms of building the company and getting it to a break even. I would say, do your research in regards to what your technology is. There's far too many software companies that build software because the company feel they want to build something clever, and then they over-engineer it, not understanding their sector they're trying to build it for. So you start talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality to an industry that still struggles to show where the photos are on their phone. It's understand your sector, consider the capital investment that you need. Is it something that you need to build that is going to cost you a lot of money? I've done this without putting my house on the line. I've done this without putting any risk to my family. And I've said all along that the first time my family get impacted by this, I will hang it up and I'll walk away from it. My family are the most important thing to me. Timing's a massive thing. If you create something that, Netflix is a good example from timing. You had Blockbuster, and I think Netflix tried about 4 years before Blockbuster, before it spanned out, and it never went anywhere. And I think Netflix tried to sell the dream to Blockbuster and was turned down. And then all of a sudden Netflix says, I'll go on my own. And then 4 years later, Blockbuster disappeared and Netflix is up there. So it is all about timing and make sure you position yourself right. And like I said previously, anybody in that position who wants to build technology, don't take no as a negative, take no as a lesson. That why are they seeing no? And next time somebody asks me a question, can I ensure I address why that person said no to try and get a yes? It's that fail forward mentality that the amount of times I've been told no, I should be a manic depressant now. Nobody likes to be told no that many times, but it's part of the cause. It's just, but yeah, I'd just get on with it. I wish I got on with this 13 years ago and didn't hold on to it for as long as I did. I just wish I went for it, but yeah, I finally did.
Well, look, Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story today. And whilst your golf game might have suffered, it's clearly, a real success story that you've built for you and your family and your friends. So very well done, sir.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.